Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this blog. Here we are going to, this is a very new blog, and we are going to deal with matters, religion, economy, education, governance, environment, and so forth, particularly regarding Africa. And we shall deal with country to country. We shall dissect information regarding specific countries in Africa as to whether we are making any substantial economic progress or not, whether we are making progress on matters human rights and on matters we have touched on here. Now, I want to begin this blog by discussing these issues regarding Kenya. What is the current state of education in Kenya? What is the current state of agriculture in Kenya? What about health? How is the state of the Kenyan economy? What is the state of the Kenyan cities? How is the Nairobi city doing today? What are the state of roads in Kenya? In the converse, we shall look at the poverty index in Kenya. What's the current regime in Kenya doing to eradicate poverty? What is the current state of corruption in Kenya? How are the public resources being used today? So we begin by looking at the state of education. The current Kenyan regime, being led by Dr. Ruto, promised an affordable education. In fact, the government promised a free education. And unfortunately, the current state of education in Kenya is that the cost of education has doubled. Universities are no longer going to be as affordable as they were before. We all know that beginning with the Kibaki regime, the light was seen to shine again on education in Kenya when Kibaki came up with free education. Ever since, literacy levels in Kenya have reduced. So many people have gone to school and acquired requisite skills to survive. But now, what's happening today in Kenya is totally the opposite. Just look into the current cost of education in Kenya and you'll be surprised. So many people will now cross over to Uganda for affordable education. I'm not sure whether education over there has the same quality as we have in Kenya. Look at agriculture. The current regime promised fertilizers to the farmers. Instead of lowering the cost to an affordable level, the price of fertilizers still high. And unfortunately, not all farmers access these fertilizers. Just do your own studies and you'll find that there are regions where this fertilizer never got to reach. I don't know based on what criterion they have supplied these fertilizers, if at all they have done so. Look at the state of health. After one scandal, we have another scandal. A small hospital in a certain region reports to have done more surgeries than a national hospital, the main one in Kenya, Kenyatta National Hospital. And these people get away with the corruption. They steal the funds that should help the sick. So I think there's a lot of work for the current regime in Kenya to be done so that the people can have their confidence restored. the state of the economy. Now, the current regime promised to improve the economy, to have more people get jobs, to put more people into work. What's happening currently? Multinationals are closing shop. Businesses are closing shop because of high cost of doing business in Kenya. Taxation regime is getting unfavorable for investors. The Kenyan currency is dwindling. The value of the Kenyan currency against the dollar has fallen by 20% or so. So how is that possible that investors can find it favorable to work in Kenya? So again, this regime must look into tax policies. It should look into the possibility of creating free economic zones so that we can have as many as possible investors in the country. It's not possible to talk of creating jobs when we don't have investments because as we are now as a country, we rely so much on agricultural products, which are not sufficient to provide jobs to the country. So we have to have investors bring in new ideas. We must have diverse manufacturing industries in the country. We don't have that now. So not so much is being done currently. When this regime got into power, they promised an economy that would revolutionize cities so that cities would be producers of stuff, put more people into jobs. Now the country has been reduced into a small economy, a small mamambogas economy, where people are selling mitumbas everywhere in the city. The city is rugged. Nairobi is losing its status in Africa. The green city in Africa has now been reduced into a shanty. Walk around in Nairobi and you'll be surprised at the sight of what you see. Those people who have rented houses or shops to sell their goods in the city will not make any profit today. Because if, for example, you have a sous seller, as a seller in a shop, just at the door, somebody's selling mitumba, imported stuff of the dead. How can you make profits when an economy is run like that? Look at the state of roads. When this regime got into power, they promised better roads in Kenya. Since 2022 elections, have not seen any road being made anywhere. And if anybody has evidence of a road being made, maybe those roads are being made in certain regions. I've not seen myself. I live in Nairobi. I've not seen roads in Nairobi being constructed. So all the glory goes back to Mr. Kenyatta for all the best roads that you can see in Nairobi and in parts of Kenya. Give the glory where it is due. Those who don't eat roads can now see the importance of building roads. So I think in Africa, we are again losing glory. We had already gained momentum and the momentum is getting lost. Now, I want to ask questions to the current regime. What are you doing about poverty currently? You rose to power based on the idea of raising the smallest person to become greatest. From Mama Mbogas, as you call it in Kenya, it became a cliche, a household name. To be a Mama Mboga was something being glorified. Today, Mama Mbogas are not allowed close to presidency. The president walks to a place and the Mama Mboga in quotes is blocked from getting to the vicinity. So what drives these people into power is basically for self-gratification. Once they are there, they remove the ladder which they used to climb up there. What is the current regime doing about corruption? The most corrupt of the individuals are being promoted to the plum jobs in government. The people who murdered people with the cases in court which have not been resolved are getting promoted. This government is corrupt to the core. Why are African governments so corrupt? Yet, after corruption and after they amass all the wealth through corruption, they begin to beg for donor aid so that they get the citizens out of corruption. That's mediocrity. Misuse of public resources. They are no longer accountable. The buck stops with every leader. They must tell us what they are doing with the resources that have been given. Unfortunately, we have become so stupid, extremely stupid. We cannot even ask for accountability from our leaders. All we want is to eat rice and beef. Then we go back to our children with full stomachs, full bellies, yet they are hungry at home. We are so selfish. What can this regime tell us about perennial campaigns? Elections were over. They are all over in cars. They are over the cars campaigning as if elections are next year, instead of fulfilling the promises they made to the people. They're moving from region to region, bringing together churches to pray for what they can do physically, practically. Who told them that prayers can change an economy? What's wrong with us Africans? Who bewitched us? Praying for the nation. Prayers are good. I'm a Christian and I'm born again for that matter. I don't believe that you can substitute work with prayers. That's being stupid. So it's high time our leaders go to work. We are not going to change Africa by prayers, but by working. Because the Bible says, him who does not work should not eat. I also want to ask another question to this regime. What are you doing about ethnicity? Why must you still propagate that ideology of the 19th century of using militias to remain in power? Why should you use the barrel of the gun to remain in power? Dictatorship is a thing of the past. We fought for freedoms and we must safeguard our freedoms. Doesn't matter whether you shall use the barrel of the gun to remain in power. We shall resist. Our freedoms are as important to us as life. So a regime should not purport to protect people's properties by using the gun to kill the innocents. And I think the foreign powers, including the Americans, recently they sent an emissary here, Senator Coons, to negotiate a ceasefire between Raila Odinga and William Ruto. They should come here and tell us facts. Human rights must be respected. Dictatorship has no place in Kenya. Kenyans are woke. We are educated. We know what we want. And even not the barrel of the gun can stop us from speaking our minds. So this regime should not know that we are not in the era of colonialism, where what we do internally should be dictated by the West. Look at what is happening in West Africa. They are looking for bilateral relationships that are mutual, where they benefit. It's give me and I give you, not take and go with it and then you bring back your benefits, a small proportion to us in terms of loans. You're not going to take that bullshit. Africa must be free. Freedom is what we want, and we shall fight for our freedoms. So, ladies and gentlemen, this blog shall be about the people, environment, politics, Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, South Africa. All African countries must fight for freedoms. If our leaders say they want to lead us, then the buck stops with them. We must do the right thing. Thank you. Subscribe to this channel and let's work together. Thank you very much.